The calm hum of the control room echoed like a heartbeat, steady yet deceptively tranquil. Captain Alara Quinn stood at the forefront, her intense blue eyes fixed on the holographic display. A detailed chart of their sector glowed ominously before her, filled with flickering blips that marked the trajectory of the approaching Xanthari fleet. Alara's heart raced as she pressed a finger against her temple, trying to stave off the swell of anxiety threatening to overwhelm her. "Captain, the Xanthari fleet is moving fast," Lieutenant Aaron Shaw said, his voice cutting through her thoughts like a knife. His lanky frame leaned over the console, fingers dancing across the controls. "If they maintain this speed, they'll reach our position in less than an hour." Alara inhaled deeply, suppressing the swell of dread that clawed at her. "Can we launch a probe to gather more intel?" Aaron hesitated, glancing at the readings. "We can try, but our resources are stretched thin. We might attract unwanted attention. Then we'll have to be smart about it," she replied, determination igniting her resolve. The Xanthari had underestimated humanity before, and she was determined to ensure they would do so again. "Commander Tarek won't be expecting us to strike first," Aaron suggested, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Alara turned sharply, her gaze narrowing. "You think we should take the fight to them?" Before Aaron could respond, the air in the room crackled with tension. A low siren began to wail, growing in intensity as if echoing the rising panic within her. "Captain? Incoming transmission!" The voice of Communications Officer Mara Reed jolted her back to reality. The holographic display flickered and shifted, revealing a static-ridden image of Tarek, the Xanthari commander. His alien features were sharp, with skin that glimmered like polished steel under the dim lights. "Humans," he intoned, voice smooth yet dripping with disdain. "Your resistance is futile. Your fleet stands no chance against our might." Alara's fists clenched at her sides. "Your arrogance blinds you, Tarek. We are not as weak as you believe." A cold laugh echoed from the speakers, sending a chill down her spine. "You cling to hope, but hope will not save you. We will obliterate your defenses and claim your world." "Enough!" Alara snapped, her voice ringing with authority. "We will not bow to your threats." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving a palpable silence in the room. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence visibly shaken. "Captain, we need a plan," Aaron urged, urgency lacing his tone. "We can't just wait for them to arrive." Alara turned back to the holographic map, her mind racing. A plan was crucial, but they needed to outsmart their adversaries. "We can use our stealth systems to our advantage," she said, her voice steadying as she found her footing. "We'll send a small team to disrupt their communication and sow confusion within their ranks." Mara's brow furrowed. "That's risky. If we're detected, then we'll be heroes," Alara interrupted, her voice tinged with conviction. "Or we'll be another chapter in their stories of conquest. Either way, we fight." As the crew rallied around her, their resolve reigniting, Alara felt the familiar warmth of leadership flow through her veins. She was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that humanity's fate rested in their hands. In that moment, she made a silent vow: they would not go quietly into the night. She would lead her people against the encroaching storm, refusing to let fear dictate their future. The alarms blared once more, drowning out her thoughts, but this time it was different. This time, it sounded like a call to arms. The control room buzzed with an electric energy as Alara Quinn leaned over the holographic map, her thoughts racing like a starship in hyperspace. "We need to position the stealth drones along their flank," she instructed, her finger tracing a path across the glowing display. "We'll disrupt their sensors and create an opening for the strike team." "Are you sure they won't detect the drones before they get into position?" Aaron Shaw questioned, skepticism lacing his voice. He furrowed his brow, the tension in his posture evident as he processed the risks. Alara met his gaze, her own resolve firm. "They'll be focused on our main fleet. We'll exploit that distraction." She turned to the crew, who watched her intently. "We're going to catch them off guard. It's the only way to ensure our survival." Lieutenant Mara Reed, seated at the communications console, raised her hand. Captain, I can enhance our stealth technology with a frequency modulation to mask our drones further. It should give us a few extra minutes. Do it, Elara ordered. Every second counts. The weight of command pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she couldn't afford to waver now. The fate of her crew, and humanity, rested on this plan. As Mara began her work, Elara took a moment to observe the team around her. Each face reflected a mixture of fear and determination. Aaron, with his scruffy hair and piercing green eyes, had been her right-hand man for years. They had faced countless battles together, but this one felt different, more personal. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, Elara said, raising her voice to inspire confidence. We're fighting for every human life that has ever existed. For every child who dreams of a better future. The room fell silent, and she could see the resolve in their eyes harden. We can win this, she continued, her voice steady. But we have to work as one. No heroics, just a united front. Agreed, Aaron said, his expression softening. We'll make it happen, Captain. Just give the word. As they finalized their strategy, the ship's alarms blared again, interrupting the moment. A new blip flickered on the holographic display, an incoming Xanthari vessel. The crew tensed, adrenaline spiking as they braced for action. Damn it! Elara swore, her pulse quickening. How did they find us so quickly? It could be a scouting ship, Aaron replied, eyes darting across the readouts. They might be probing for weaknesses. Prepare to engage, Elara commanded, her voice unwavering despite the urgency of the situation. We'll hold them off while we execute our plan. The tension in the room thickened as Mara relayed the command to the weapons crew. Shields up! All hands to battle stations! As the ship rattled from the impact of the Xanthari vessel firing upon them, Elara could feel the vibrations resonate through her bones. Status report! She shouted, her heart racing. Shields at 80%! A crew member shouted back, urgency painting their features. Return fire! Elara commanded. We can't let them get the upper hand. Explosions rocked the ship as their cannons responded, lighting up the darkness of space. Elara gripped the edge of the console, the intensity of the moment sharpening her focus. Drones are ready, Mara reported. We just need a few moments to launch them. Let's buy her those moments, Aaron said, determination flooding his tone. He swiftly took his station at the weapons console, eyes gleaming with fierce resolve. I'll cover you. Then we're out of time, Elara said, turning to face her crew. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, launch! The drones shot forth into the void, cloaked in near invisibility, while the Xanthari ship retaliated. Their laser beams cut through the darkness like fireflies in the night, illuminating the cold expanse of space. As the drones engaged, Elara's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She could feel the tide of battle shifting, but she knew the real test lay ahead. They had to strike swiftly before the Xanthari regrouped. With every passing moment, the stakes rose. Failure was not an option. She would not let her people down. As the first explosion lit up the darkness, she gripped the console tightly, whispering a silent prayer. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and Elara Quinn was determined to lead them to victory. A heavy silence enveloped the control room, the aftermath of the drone's strike hanging in the air like an unspoken question. Elara Quinn studied the holographic displays, the glowing maps and figures still fluctuating as they updated in real time. In the depths of her mind, a whirlpool of anxiety churned. The initial success felt fragile, as if it could be shattered by the slightest misstep. How many drones did we lose? She asked, her voice steady despite the unease settling in her stomach. 3 out of 20, Mara Reed replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. But they managed to cause significant damage to the Xanthari's sensor array. We've bought ourselves some time. Aaron Shaw stepped closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. Time is good, but we need to act fast. They'll adapt, and when they do... His voice trailed off, the implication clear. Elara nodded, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders. We'll move now. Mara, can you hack into their comms? I want to know what they're planning. On it, Mara said, determination flashing in her eyes. The hum of technology surrounded them, and for a moment, Alara allowed herself to feel the surge of camaraderie with her crew. Each member had been handpicked, forged in the fires of previous battles. They were more than just soldiers, they were family. Captain, I'm detecting a shift in their formation, Mara announced, her fingers flying over the console. They're regrouping, likely preparing to retaliate. Alara's heart raced as she fought to keep her composure. Aaron, I need you to prepare the main cannons. We'll hit them while they're still vulnerable. If we wait, we'll lose the advantage. Ready when you are, he replied, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. As Mara focused on the incoming data, a series of fragmented transmissions began to filter through. They're discussing a counteroffensive, she relayed, her eyes widening. They're planning to deploy their own strike force to intercept us. Great, Aaron muttered, crossing his arms. What's our window of opportunity? Less than 15 minutes, Mara estimated, her expression intense. We need to act now. Alara inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of courage. Okay, listen up. We're going to launch a surprise attack on their command ship. It'll be risky, but if we can disable their leadership, the rest of their fleet will falter. Aaron, prepare the missiles for a long-range strike. Mara, focus on jamming their communications during the launch. Yes, Captain, they replied in unison, the determination palpable. As the crew set to work, the atmosphere shifted, the earlier tension morphing into a sharp focus. Alara felt a surge of pride in her team. Each member, from the engineers in the back to the pilots at the front, shared one mission: survival. Captain, the Xanthari ships are closing in, Mara warned, her voice tinged with urgency. They're on high alert. Then we'll move fast. Aaron, target their engines. I want them immobilized before they can make a move. With her heart pounding, Alara watched as Aaron meticulously aimed their ship's weaponry. The control room hummed with intensity as the countdown began. Each tick felt like a drumbeat, pushing them toward an uncertain fate. 5, 4, 3. Mara's fingers hovered over her console, the energy in the room crackling with anticipation. 2, 1, fire! Alara shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. The ship erupted with the roar of cannon fire, missiles streaking toward the Xanthari command vessel, leaving trails of light in the darkness of space. Alara's breath caught as she watched the projectiles close in on their target, a mix of hope and anxiety flooding her senses. But then, in an instant, the Xanthari ship erupted with defensive countermeasures, a dazzling display of shields and flares. They're adapting too quickly, Mara shouted, panic creeping into her voice. Rear out power to shields, Alara commanded, adrenaline surging through her veins. Brace for impact. The control room shook violently as the Xanthari retaliated, their return fire streaking toward them. The alarms blared, filling the air with urgency as Alara clenched her fists, determination hardening her resolve. Hold on! She yelled, the realization crashing over her like a wave. They were in the storm now, and there was no turning back. The battle for humanity had reached its tipping point, and she would fight with every ounce of strength she had to protect her people. The ship shuddered violently as another wave of enemy fire slammed against its hull, the dim emergency lights flickering in response. Alara Quinn steadied herself against the console, her heart racing as alarms blared. The Xanthari fleet was retaliating, their ships moving with ruthless precision. Each explosion echoed through the control room, sending ripples of fear coursing through her crew. Status report! Alara shouted, fighting to keep her voice steady. Shields at 50% and dropping, Mara Reed responded, her fingers dancing over the controls. We're losing power faster than we can recharge. Aaron Shaw gritted his teeth, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. We need to return fire. We can't just sit here and take it. Agreed, Alara said, her resolve hardening. Target the Xanthari command ship and prepare to fire again. As Mara recalibrated their weapons, a jarring thud reverberated through the ship. Direct hit! We've lost primary power to the starboard engines, she cried, panic edging into her tone. Divert all remaining energy to shields and weapon systems, Elara ordered, her mind racing. We can't afford to back down now. We have to strike before they can regroup. Aaron nodded, his voice calm despite the chaos. I'll set the target coordinates. If we can disable their command ship, we'll disrupt their entire fleet. As they worked, the atmosphere shifted. The hum of machinery and the sharp staccato of alarms filled the air, but beneath it all was a burgeoning sense of determination. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of humanity. Ready to fire on your mark, Captain, Mara said, her eyes locked onto the tactical display. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her team's hopes resting on her shoulders. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire! The ship shook again as their weapons discharged, a brilliant beam of energy tearing through the void, striking the Xanthari command ship with deadly accuracy. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stretch, and then the enemy ship erupted in a blinding explosion. Yes! Aaron shouted, pumping his fist in the air. We got them! But their victory was short-lived. Incoming fire! Mara yelled, her voice slicing through the moment of triumph. They're targeting us! Elara's heart sank as she watched the approaching beams of light. Brace for impact! She cried, throwing herself against the console. The ship convulsed as the blast hit, jarring everyone to their core. Shields down to 20%! Mara yelled, frantically working to reroute power. We can't take another hit like that. Then let's make this one count, Elara said, forcing herself to think clearly amidst the chaos. Aaron, I need you to prepare for a manual launch of the torpedoes. We'll have to take out their remaining ships up close. Understood, he replied, determination etching his features. As Mara scrambled to stabilize their systems, the weight of the moment pressed down on Elara. They were running out of time. How long until we can fire again? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Too long. We're going to have to improvise, Mara replied, her voice tense. If we can get close enough, I might be able to disrupt their targeting systems long enough for you to get a shot off. Then let's do it, Elara declared, the fire of resolve igniting within her. Mara, take us in. I'll give the order when we're in range. With the control room buzzing around them, the crew sprang into action. Elara felt the familiar thrill of adrenaline pumping through her veins as the ship surged forward, weaving between incoming fire. The Xanthari ships closed in, their formations tightening like a noose. They're on to us! Aaron shouted, sweat glistening on his brow. We're not going to make it! Hold steady! Elara commanded, her voice firm. Trust in each other! As the ship hurtled into the fray, the tension reached its zenith. They had crossed the point of no return, and every instinct screamed at Elara to falter. But with her crew behind her, their fates intertwined, she felt the strength of humanity's indomitable spirit surge within her. Now, Mara! She shouted as they entered the danger zone. Do it! With a flick of her wrist, Mara initiated the systems, and the ship shuddered as energy rippled through their weapons. The Xanthari fleet loomed larger, but in that moment, Elara knew they were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future. And with that thought she steeled herself for the confrontation that would decide it all.